All right, good day. My name is Aaron Jones. This is the next update on Project Uniform Sierra. So, what I did this week was basically take feedback from last week and try to figure out how to make the walkable playing area more level so that the players more easily able to tell where the ground is that they ought to be walking and where the walls are. So some of the feedback I got was that some of the terrain was too steep, and so it wasn't clear to the player if the terrain was walkable or if it was not intended to be walkable. So I replaced, I added a lot of assets to try to help define the walls and where that the player ought to be going. So like this first cavern had no assets, so it was just basically just the terrain, the landscape. So I tried to flatten it out and make this more even, but then also adding specific definition to the terrain where the player would be able to say, okay, hey, that's a drop. Um, but so that part was fleshed out a bit. Also along this wall, this was all wide open. It was just the terrain. There's nothing there. Also, the other side of like the home starting area. The other major thing that I changed this week was fleshing out the canyon. So it's not a canyon anymore. This is really what I wanted it to be, but I just didn't know how to do it, and so I just did it. So basically, before I go in there, um, this is the outside of the cavern. So it is completely enclosed now, with a few exceptions. There are some holes that poke through, so that the player gets like some of the natural light from the outside. But now, after getting the fire axe, the players will proceed down this canyon, which I tried to even it out so that it's less of a slope, more floating rocks, so that it's not so jarring, and then also define the walls more clearly in the cave so that the players know, okay, that's not a walkable space. So then I enclosed the cave to make sure that it felt like a cave. So I'll do the playthrough here in just a second, but I just wanted to go through and show the changes. There's the rock fall area. So I also tried to use assets to be able to direct the player. So obviously we've got like some big cliffs right here. It's not intended for the player to just jump off the cliff. Assets that direct the player to a certain area. Broken stairs to show like kind of the way it was supposed to be back in the day before it was broken down. So ideally, I kind of positioned the rocks so that they would fall this way, so that they would kind of fall to fill in this blank area, so that when the rocks fall, this is where they're navigating, not over here. I haven't quite perfected that yet. It's still very much a work in progress. So that way, there's something to do in this area, even though it looks kind of blank. And then they'll get through the rocks, and then they have bad guys waiting for them. And then this is going to be a boss arena. Obviously, not obviously, at some point, this is going to be a boss arena. Once I figured it all out. So, kind of that's it as far as like the updates for this week. I just wanted to make, based on last week's feedback, I wanted to make sure that I was intentional with the landscape and making sure that the player could tell where they were not supposed to be and where they were supposed to be. I still like I said, a lot of work I still have other areas that are just landscape that I need to do. But last week, the specific feedback was about this the canyon, which is now a cave. So hopefully that helps improve the player experience. It definitely is more along the lines of what I wanted for that area. I just, like I said, I wasn't sure how to make caves. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. So I won't go through the whole playthrough today because it's kind of late. And really just showcasing the detailed changes I made to the walls, primarily what I wanted to accomplish. But I will start from right here so I can show like the whole um, cave effect with all the stuff. All right, so obviously I have some timing timing issues with regards to like when the um, rocks are affected by physics and when they stop, because we had some pretty gnarly floating rocks there. But I guess like changing the shape of the canyon and adding the different layers and the stuff, and I'm actually really going to need to revisit like where the rocks are and how long the physics are affecting the rocks to get that to work out as well as it was before. Um, but I still haven't gotten stuck with the rock, so that's good. So yeah, so as far as updates for this week, that is kind of it. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. All right. Thank you.